Regarding spoilers in this review, just as the title says, there will be no major spoilers featured in this review. Rest assured, I am sensitive to the fact that I am amongst the first to experience the story, and I aim to not ruin that for you. In addition to this spoiler warning, check out the Google form in the description and pinned comment for details about an upcoming giveaway that I will announce at the end of this video. This must be. I am utterly bereft, and I am exhausted. To everybody in my status updates on Goodreads expressing jealousy or jokingly wishing to bribe me to let you read this book early, as I was blessed by Christopher to experience in June, yet 5 months from release at the time, about 4 months from release now, I have one thing to say to you all. Be careful what you wish for. Many of us like to poke fun at Christopher for supposedly choosing violence upon his readers with books like Kingdoms of Death and Ashes of Man, but never has he chosen full-scale violence in the way that he has with this, the final entry of the primary Sun Eater saga. Not a single reader will come out of this journey unscathed, no matter what your favorite part of the series so far has been. Not a one. Shadows Upon Time is the most jaw-dropping, the most revelatory, the most insane, the most exciting, the most tense, the most depressing, the most unique, the most unbelievable, and the most unexpectedly expected entry of the series. Bar none. If there is any other book in the Sun Eater that can be said to be firing on all cylinders, Shadows Upon Time can be said to have revealed more cylinders you didn't even know were there, and fired them too. If Disquiet Gods before it can be known for dialing so many things up to 11, Shadows Upon Time dialed them up to 12, and dialed everything else that wasn't already up to 11 up there too. In a completely expected twist, haha, Christopher has in fact written his best novel to date with Shadows Upon Time, due in no small part to nigh on every single aspect of the series appearing in its best or most ambitious form yet somewhere in this book. There should be no wonder why Shadows Upon Time clocks in at 100,000 words longer than either Demon in White or Disquiet Gods, which were previously the two very similarly length longest books. This finale justifies every bit of that length and could have justified so much more than that. Hell, as is, Christopher managed to get something like 50,000 or more words cut from the first draft to the version that I got to read, which was the pre-copy edit draft, for those wondering. I almost wish those 50,000 extra words were there, albeit perhaps more in the form of scenes that Hadrian the narrator opted to leave out, and not necessarily as shortened versions of what was already there. I almost wish for that. In either case, no matter how you think this book is going to go down, no matter how you think Gododin is going to play out, you are not ready for what Shadows Upon Time brings to the table. From the places that I hang around, I seemed to be somewhat less blown away by Disquiet Gods than many other people were. That's not to say I thought it was bad, because that would be untrue. I rated it 5 stars after all, but rather to say that despite it having one of the all-time greatest action set pieces in all of fiction with the Sabratha sequence, and despite it having arguably the most mind-blowing moment I've ever experienced with the book, chapters 38 to 40, if you know, you know, Disquiet Gods wound up ranking 4th place out of 6 when I finished reading it, topping only Kingdoms of Death, much to my chagrin, because goddamn is that a fantastic book too, and Empire of Silence, which I will never not consider notably the weakest book of the series. Put more simply, I really liked Disquiet Gods for a lot of reasons, but the final sequence left me slightly wanting. I found the spatial reasoning to be at times hard to work with in my imagination, and furthermore, the book entire ends a little bit more openly than I would have preferred given how tightly all 5 previous books ended. It wasn't unfinished or anything, but it was also obvious that it was merely the setup for this book. So when I finished reading Disquiet Gods, I immediately began the wait, knowing that only once I knew how Shadows Upon Time started would I know one way or the other whether its predecessor would improve in my eyes or stay in the same place. The jury's still out on that one. I definitely need to reread both of them moderately closer together to know for sure. But whatever the case, Shadows Upon Time most absolutely utilizes this to the fullest extent, making for easily the most engaging opening in the Sun Eater yet. Christopher concludes here what Disquiet Gods left open in perhaps the most creative way imaginable, considering the context of the series. He plays with time and perspective in some really interesting ways, and yet does not sacrifice on the core narrative structure in doing so. You find yourself seeing certain events and happenings in ways that both complement and usurp what we've gotten used to over the prior 1.5+ million words in the series, closer to 2 million when you include the extra novellas and short stories. I absolutely loved this. Some readers may be wary about portions of the opening arc for one reason or another, but by the 20% mark it has entirely justified its existence as is. Massive props to Rockio for taking some interesting swings here. I should also note that the opening of the book is interestingly placed too, because of the way the first fifth of the novel is told, and the portion of the story it tells. It makes for the intro to be reminiscent both of the classic time jump the series is known for, while also feeling halfway like the lack of jump between books 4 and 5. You'll understand what I mean here more when you read the book for yourself. So the intro is very good, but what about the rest of the first act? Well, that too is pretty solid. It is primarily focused on getting Hadrian on the path to do what must be, and Christopher does that by having Hadrian interact with side characters. A lot. Like, notably more than previous books, in my view. Or maybe it just seems that way because these interactions are practically all the very best of Christopher's interpersonal character moments on page in the first place. The side characters in this book they're just so good, you guys. So good. Cassandra, Lorien, Aloran, Alexander, Selene, yes, with 3 syllables, you damn heathens, William, Nicephorus, the non-human characters, and so many more primary side characters are just the start of this. Included alongside them are characters who you meet for the first time in this book who also get to shine in ways similar examples simply didn't in previous entries. If anybody dares complain about Christopher's side characters in Shadows Upon Time, like is sometimes the case in regard to especially the Red Company of earlier entries, I will have a conniption and personally find and slap whoever asserts such quackery. Christopher has done an absurd amount of his best character work broad scale in Shadows Upon Time, and I don't know if I could even sort of take seriously anybody who comes to disagree with this point. In fact, Christopher's characters in Shadows Upon Time are indicative of the broader trends of the book as a rule. Just about everything that the series has contained at one point or another by now is here in its greatest form yet. The characters are the example that I've already talked about, but the general impact of the plot and the tension baked therein, the pacing of the major acts and relativity to the smaller moments intermixed, the politics and character moments baked into those, the antagonisms abound between all sorts of different parties, even a point like resolving very many loose ends, whether they seemed loose or not before I read this book, which all come together to create a composite whole that Sun Eater hasn't seen before. None of the previous books were incomplete, but this book almost makes some of them quail. But so, how do the middle and final acts go? How are these in relativity to the opening act, which I think is so solid? Minor structural spoilers contained from now until the conclusion, by the way, so if you're really sensitive to that, I would advise you consider skipping to the end. The second act is a tale of 2 parts. The first major portion of it is one of those stereotypical, we have a plan and this is how we're going to make a final stand type of sequences that you already know won't work out on account of there being, I don't know, still more than half of the book to go. Okay, so Christopher still does the unexpected here. You get more of that character and resolution stuff I was talking about earlier. You get some of Hadrian's power and action in an engaging duel that doesn't boil down to silly putty nonsense or MCU CGI slop, so props to Christopher on managing that. And you get some of the mind-twisting material that only the Watchers are capable of And oh boy, we'll have a bit to say about that aspect later. The failure that you know is inevitably coming comes, and it still hits like a sack of bricks and in yet unexpected ways on account of the sheer volume of things that are going on in this book. So then the second major portion of the second act is making a recovery from the setback and preparing for the actual finale. Not a single one of you is ready for what this section entails. It is at once awesome, or at least should have the spirit of being the coolest thing in the series, but then it ends up being watching a train crash in slow motion. And I mean this in the most seriously kind way it could possibly be meant. The great politics of the series make a sharp and wonderful return to the forefront during this section, and the interpersonal tensions and character work remains top-notch. It's just great. It's dreadful to read, but it's so damn good too. Then, the climax. Gododin. I can't say anything about this at all, save for what I said at the start. No matter how you think things are going to go down at Gododin, you're wrong. That's the short of it. This sequence is absolute insanity from start to finish. The degree to which the villains play a role here is so fun too. None of it is how you expect, but none of it is a hard left turn that you wish Christopher hadn't made either. There are dynamics and revelations that you can scarce see coming, and so confrontations that you can little predict. I reflect as well upon how I opened this review. I am utterly bereft. Gododin did this. As for what occurs after Gododin, well, I know many would like to know how much of the book takes place after this climactic sequence, but of that, I will say nothing. What I can say is that the ending is not what I thought it would be. In many ways, the middle of this book did so many things completely differently than I had thought they would. They caused for me to hate the ending that I knew was coming to be. I hated seeing it end the way I knew I must. In that way, Christopher got the last laugh, again, by ripping my heart in twain. I guess the end is what you expect in the sense that Hadrian tells it to you a million times, but it doesn't make it any less impactful or harrowing. Finally, I would argue that the end of Shadows Upon Time is both the most open and least of the series. In terms of finishing Hadrian's personal tale, it is certainly an ending, for there are no true endings, as he says. You'll have to read the book to see what precisely I mean. What I predict about Shadows Upon Time is that the vast majority of Sun Eater's readers will not just be happy with it, but they will consider it the best book of the series, as I am wont to do now. In many ways, it is the best book, and unquestionably so. It showcases Christopher's talent and planning and preparation brilliantly without wasting any time to do so, and he gives more time and space to things that he otherwise could have left out to keep the book a bit shorter. I am glad he didn't, and I think that most others will agree. But outside of this primary readership, I think there will be a few factions of people otherwise. Some of these people will have to ponder and think for a while to determine how they truly feel about the book. There's so much to it that coming to a conclusion so soon is difficult, as I'm sure my mediocre review now demonstrates. I think most of the group will fall on the side of super into it as well, but it is a lot to take in, to put it lightly. There will be a small minority of people who aren't exactly expecting what this book offers, and so perhaps end up a little mixed about it as a result. And there will be people who just straight up find it disappointing for reasons nobody could explain, as all books wind up finding within their audiences. These are nothing to despair over, for I think the vast majority will be entirely on board, as it seemed to me the reception to Disquiet Gods was. And on that note, if there's one thing I know to be true here, it is this. The people who were lukewarm on or bothered by the direction that Disquiet Gods took the quiet/watcher stuff are unlikely to enjoy this book as much as I selfishly believe they should. Some people will, and have, closed their minds so solidly against this aspect of the series that they will simply struggle with Shadows Upon Time. It frankly does not matter how obvious it was going to end up being by books 4 and 5 that this was where things were going. nor how much more obvious it is on a reread as early as Caliga in Empire of Silence, specifically the chapter entitled I Dare Not Meet in Dreams, which is actually referenced a couple of times here. A lot of Empire of Silence is actually referenced in Shadows Upon Time, come to think, a lot more than you might expect, but that all goes to solidify how good this final entry does at wrapping up this series. As I said, there will be a portion of the readers that will struggle with this, and there will too be a chunk of readers who absolutely hate it for this aspect. If you dislike Disquiet Gods for its Disquiet Gods, I worry for your reception of this book. Just know that Christopher does not at all back off of the Watcher angle. If anything, he doubles down. As for myself, I really respect that, but I get others might not end up as into it as I am. I saw this whole thing coming way back on AU, or UA, however you pronounce that, back in Kingdoms of Death, and if anybody got to that part of the series and didn't predict this ramp up, I think that's on them. But oh my gosh, how can I forget to talk about the actual mind-bending moments and reveals of this book? If you've read Sun Eater, you know about how Christopher really likes to mess with his readers sometimes. This remains the case. Things get crazy here. In fact, one particular chapter in the middle of the climax managed to make me, for no good reason, hate a character I previously loved, and I am still recovering from it. I suddenly understand why wives get so bitter when their husbands do something shitty to them in their dreams, even if there's no sensible reason for it otherwise. Thanks, Christopher. I really needed that one. I could have done without that torment, actually, but you know what I mean. And speaking on the reveals, Shadows Upon Time changes the name of the game with just about everything that it could have. You seriously have no idea what kinds of reveals you are in for here. The size, shape, and scope of the entire galaxy is upended in this book, and it made for some insane and unexpected payoffs to previous foreshadowing in the series. Nothing is like you think it is. That I can promise, and I will elaborate no further. But let's get around to concluding this probably somewhat poor review. Sun Eater is my favorite book series, full stop. The reasons for this are many and not worth getting into here, but it is a series that I adore and have spent more time with in these past 3 years than any other. Well, maybe that time is comparable to one or two others, but I'm 99% certain I've read more words written by Christopher Rocchio than by any other author, and I think that goes for my entire life, and not just the past few years. The fact that I went from first-timer in August 2022 to one of the first, dozen-ish people to read Shadows Upon Time, excluding his parents and beta readers and others of that nature, it has been a crazy, exciting, and blessed sequence of events. I'm grateful to Christopher for the opportunity to read this book early and provide some feedback and help catch a couple of continuity glitches. And on that note, I have to disclose the fact. I am the furthest from impartial on the topic of this author or series as can be. I have met and been called friend by Christopher, for one, and I have also done some work for him, for this series no less, including copy editing for Tales of the Sun Eater Volumes 3 and 4 in particular. I've also done work to fix the errors and thus allow for second editions of the first 2 volumes of Tales of the Sun Eater, as well as for The Lesser Devil, Queen of Mid-Ashes, and done proofreading for a couple of Andorita Books' special editions of Sun Eater material, such as The Dregs of Empire and Other Stories, and The Murdered Sun. There's also more, which I need not get into, suffice it to say that I am incredibly biased towards Sun Eater on a personal level. Furthermore, I also have a cameo character who appeared briefly in Disquiet Gods and has a bit heavier of a role in Shadows Upon Time. So in that way, I technically also have a personal stake of sorts in the series. Said cameo I paid for as an add-on for the Empire of Silence Diamond Edition Kickstarter campaign back in the first half of 2023, by the way. This wasn't some mere act of favoritism or similar random nonsense, though perhaps the degree to which the Legionnaire Holden Crusoe appears in these 2 books is greater than most or all of the other cameos. But that does not mean that I am inclined to blow smoke up Christopher's ass or to glaze something that I do not genuinely love. I won't bother wasting time listing examples of my integrity right now, but while Christopher is a friend and a client, for the purposes of this review, he need only be flagged as my favorite author, which he is, even beyond any aspect of working relationship or friendship that accompanies that. If he is similarly any of your guys' favorite author or anywhere near that, it is my estimation that you are unlikely to be disappointed by Shadows Upon Time in the slightest. I think Shadows Upon Time is Christopher's greatest novel to date. Is it my favorite one? Well, I'm not really sure about that yet. I need to continue rereading the series to figure that one out. But it is certainly his best outing as an author. This must be. Thank you so much for watching this review. I really appreciate it. For those who've read the Goodreads version of this review, it is essentially the exact same thing as this video was, so I appreciate you for checking it out nonetheless. That said, today's video was to celebrate 250 episodes of the Book Binge, being able to review my most anticipated book of the year, and probably for the decade, quite frankly. Or at least until Christopher writes something new, and all of the new things that he's working on I'm very excited about. But not only am I celebrating 250 episodes of the Book Binge with that, I'm also celebrating 250 episodes of the Book Binge with a special giveaway. If you want to know the details of the giveaway a little bit further than I'm going to explain in the video right now, there is a Google form link in the description and the pinned comment here. That will take you to the giveaway entry fill out. The only way to enter the giveaway is by using that Google form, so definitely check that out. No purchase is necessary to win. In the giveaway, you may enter for any or all three of the giveaway offerings. The first offering will be a homemade set of pin buttons of the series covers like this, made by my good friend Orion, and that will be all 7 of the book covers that we'll have buttons for, and may even include, some Red Company buttons like this as well. That will be the first offering. The second offering will be an art print of the Shadows Upon Time cover, as, displayed over here, but it's kind of hidden in the video. I'll go ahead and switch my screen. Over there, that art print, but not that size. It'll be the 13 by 19 inch version of it, the smallest version of it. You can win a free print of that, and it will be, sent to you direct from Kieran. The third offering for the giveaway will be a set of the first 6 books in trade paperback. So I have the hardcovers on the shelf, obviously, but I did pick all 6 of them up in paperback quite recently, and those will make the third offering. Entries will be allowed and collected from today, right now, at the time of this video's release, until August 1st at noon Mountain Time. Only 1 entry per person, so make sure that the email you enter into the form is one you can monitor, as we will need timely responses from the winners in order to confirm your selection. If no response is received during the allotted time as explained in the Google form down below, a different winner will be selected instead. Like I said, see the form for all of the necessary details below. Thank you all one more time for watching. I can't wait for you all to get to experience Shadows Upon Time, and I also greatly look forward to announcing the winners of the giveaway in August. Thank you one final time. A very good one. For now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.